Hey nature photographers, it's your generally friendly OM System Ambassador Lee Hoy. And this video is one I've been contemplating and thinking about for quite some time. I like to say that photography is nothing but money and time, and that money part is a very serious investment when it comes to buying camera gear, accessories, training, going on workshops, travel, clothes, you name it. There are all kinds of ways in which we can spend money in photography. And one thing that really frustrates me is when I see photographers buying crappy gear or gear they don't really need. Wasting money is not anything I want you to take lightly. So this video is all about how to buy camera gear and camera accessories wisely. I'm very familiar with all the sources out there for buying gear. I'm very familiar with all the things that are written about gear. And I'm going to help you wade through the morass of information and opportunities to help you make better purchases when it comes to your camera gear and accessories. Hello, my name is Lee Hoy, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Lee Hoy Photography. I'm an OM System Ambassador, Senior Workshop Instructor for Wildside Nature Tours. I'm a workshop instructor for Precision Camera and Video, and a contributing author for the Journal of Wildlife Photography. Well, when it comes to buying camera gear and accessories, it can be easy to make impulse purchases, or you can be influenced by certain marketing. You can waste money because you think as a beginner you need to buy certain kinds of gear versus when you're more advanced. You can go to a camera store, or you can read certain online reviews and think you're getting good information. But there's a lot that goes into knowing how to buy the right gear. So, one of the most important things that you need to do before making any purchase is assess your needs. Ask yourself this: what genre of photography am I going to be using this body, this lens, this tripod for? And what kind of conditions will I be photographing in? One of the things I see all the time is that people want to buy a travel tripod. So you walk into a camera store and you tell the camera store salesman, I want a light, small tripod. And they sell you exactly what you asked for. The problem is you don't know the correct questions to ask, or you don't know the right information to give. If you're going to come out here in summer and photograph the monsoons in the Big Bend National Park area with me, most travel tripods are not going to cut it. Now, the new PhotoPro travel tripod, the Origin Plus that I was sent, I think that one would. But I have not yet seen any other one that I would trust to hold my gear when a haboob comes blowing through. So, I think that you need to assess your needs, and you need to communicate those needs whenever you're asking a photographer, a camera store salesman, anybody about buying gear. You need to say, if you're going to buy a lens, you need to let them know, I'm going to use this lens for night sky photography, because you need a certain speed of lens to do that. If you're going to be photographing wildlife in extremely windy or rainy conditions, that's different than sitting in your backyard in a blind. If you're going to be laying on the ground in the desert or on beach, that's a very different thing than sitting in a chair photographing. So, do you shoot wildlife? Are you going to shoot birds? Because shooting mammals and shooting birds, you don't necessarily need the same reach in a focal length as you do for birds. Birds require the longest lenses of all. Are you going to do macro? Will you be doing it with or without a flash? If you're going to do it with a flash, you're going to need some kind of diffusion. And most commercially available diffusion you find in your typical camera store at B&H doesn't work. It's not going to cut it. But you do ask a macro photographer, one whose portfolio you respect, have you asked them what they use? Odds are no. You go to a camera store, you ask the salesman what you should get, they sell you something, and a serious macro photographer would tell you it's a complete waste of money. Are you going to do travel photography? Are you looking at street photography? Because then maybe something smaller and more compact will be better than perhaps a full-size wildlife body. Are you doing landscape? Then certain filters may come into play that wouldn't come into play for macro photography. So, As you assess your needs, one thing I would encourage you to do is to buy the absolute best gear you can afford. When it comes to bodies or lenses, a lot of people, because they're beginners, they think, well, let me just buy cheap lenses, cheap bodies. But that often leads to frustration because they're not capable as higher quality camera bodies and lenses. So if you can afford it, even as a beginner, it's better to get better gear, because if you get more interested, you're going to want that better gear anyways, and you could have saved that money in the beginning. And when you go to sell a consumer quality lens or body, you get almost nothing. When you go to sell pro lenses and pro bodies, you can actually get some of your money back out. Now, I tell people, never buy gear based on resale value. That's silly. Don't do that. You're buying this gear to use it, not to sell it. We're not here to make a profit, okay? So, assessing your needs, you need to define the demand on your gear. You need to think about the kind of weather you're going to photograph in. I photograph in pouring rain. I photograph in extreme cold, extreme hot, very dusty conditions. Any kind of weather condition, I photograph in it. It's one reason I love OM System. I know it holds up under all those conditions. How durable is it? I am brutal on my gear. Does the camera manufacturer offer good warranties? Do they offer upgrade packages like pro packages where you get better repair and returns on your repairs? What focal length lenses are available? Okay. Are you going to be backpacking, hiking, car camping, doing day trips, multi-day workshops? That may have an impact on which gear you want. Are you going to be shooting around saltwater in ice or snow? Again, heavy rain, dusty conditions. You need to ask those questions before you buy your gear. Now, of course, I've said when it comes to buying camera gear, it's all about budget, right? It's all about money. So what is the maximum amount you want to spend? Maybe avoid some impulse purchases that you can't afford, but don't buy cheap just to be cheap. Photography, if you're cheap by nature, photography is not going to be a good hobby for you. There's nothing cheap about photography. I mean, you don't always have to spend the most money. ProMaster rugged SD cards are cheaper than a lot of other brands, and that's what I prefer and use. So it isn't always the most expensive thing that is best. That is a very true statement. That's why not only setting your budget, but doing your research is important. We'll talk about research here in a minute. Whenever you're getting into photography, you need to think about the hidden costs. Batteries. Don't go cheap on batteries. That's one area where alternative brand batteries, they just aren't the same as camera brand batteries in general. Memory cards, yep, you're going to have to buy some, and buying one is going to be a silly adventure. Don't look to save money there, except for ProMaster Rugged is cheaper than more expensive brands. You got camera straps and good quality. The only camera strap I will ever use is Black Rapid, and I attach an Arca Swiss clamp to attach it quickly. I don't want to screw it in. That's another $100-something right there for just one, and I probably have 5 different straps. Software, you're going to need to post-process, and a free post-processing software. Really, you're going to spend tens of thousands on gear and then look for a free software. Stop being cheap when you don't want to be cheap, okay? Of course, you can look into buying used or refurbished gear. I personally would never buy gear off Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. I know it's not really very applicable. eBay. I buy clothes and some other things occasionally off eBay. I'm not buying camera gear unless it's maybe certain accessories, but I'm not buying lenses or bodies off eBay. So if you find good quality, reliable places to buy good quality used gear, then that's always an option. A used lens, I probably have more trust in than in a used body. A used flash, yeah, used tripod, sure. But now here's the thing. Let me get into this topic, doing your research. The reason you often end up with gear you don't want and shouldn't have bought is because you don't know the right questions to ask and you don't look at the right sources for information. Facebook, terrible source for reliable information. Most people that post a lot on Facebook aren't out in the field that much. So what the hell do they know? Yeah, there are some that do that, but how do you wade through that? Well, when it comes to finding reliable reviews, remember that the most popular review sites, they get gear, they have it for a week, they use it for a week, and then they write a review about it, and then you think that's a good source to buy shit from. That's stupid. It's really stupid. It's not a good idea. You know, if you're a Canon shooter, find a good, reliable Canon Explorer of Light. Look at their portfolio. Look at what they use their gear for. What do they talk about? Are they honest? Are they reliable? If you shoot OM System, man, I'm not the only ambassador. You know, you got some great ambassadors. Emily Taupin. You got, you know, Tom and Lisa Coutura. You've got, you know, Kyle Moon, who's not an ambassador. He's a friend of mine. He shoots OM System, man. He shoots it in Yellowstone and all the weather. What does he say about the gear he's been using? You know, Don Wilson and Jennifer Warner are Nikon shooters. There's many Nikon shooters out there. What do they say about their gear? You know, are people going to be honest about the highs and the lows? I mean, I've been honest about, I hate, the one thing about OM System I don't like is our firmware update process. I don't hide what I don't like. Some people think I do because I'm ambassador. Well, they're fools because they don't know me. They haven't watched enough of my videos to realize I'm brutally honest about everything. You guys know I couldn't recommend the 100 to 400 version 1, but I highly recommend version 2. So, review sites suck ass. Testing a lens in a building, come on, let's get out there, lay on a beach with me and get washed over with a wave. Now let's see how that camera performs. Not in a room shooting a printed out piece of paper. My God, I can't believe y'all rely on that crap. So, look for people that you have an established reputation. Look for people that shoot the same genres of photography you do. If you're a wildlife photographer and you're listening to reviews of a portrait photographer, that's stupid. If you're a macro photographer and you're looking at a street photographer, that's stupid. You're not learning anything that way. You're not really getting what you need in terms of research. If you go to a camera store knowing nothing, here's what you don't know. That camera store salesman probably shoots a specific brand of camera to which he has an allegiance to, but he will also have a stronger allegiance to whatever camera manufacturer may be giving them a deal that week. Camera manufacturers go and say, hey, if you sell 10 of these bodies, you get one free. You don't know that, and they're not telling you that. You don't know which camera manufacturers pay out the most for selling gear. I believe it's OM System on bodies pays out the most to the sales people. So, if you go to a camera store not knowing anything and ask questions, as a betting man, I would bet that you are probably not going to get the best gear for your situation. Now, I have some really good friends who are camera store salesmen, and I'm not begrudging them, but they are often in a store and not out shooting, okay? So what works inside that building and what works in real world conditions is not the same. I'm not saying don't buy from local camera stores. Very much support local camera stores. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But you don't want to start your research there. However, important research is actually putting your hands on the gear. I personally will not buy a camera body. I won't buy a lens. I won't buy a tripod without my hands on it. Now, if someone sends me gear to test for YouTube, yeah, I will do that without putting my hands on it. But you guys will notice a pattern in my videos. The first video I do is my first impressions. How can I do a review of something that I haven't used yet? I know a lot like, you know, oh, I have really good news. I'm now going to be a Photo Pro ambassador. I'm sure they would like for me to do a review video quicker than I do, but I do my first impressions, then I do my review after I've had it for a while. I will sell more gear that way because I will understand it better and my information to you will be more reliable. So I don't operate the way most YouTubers operate. I don't operate the way a lot of other people operate, but that's okay. I'm going to be me. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be them, but I'm telling you how I operate is so that you know you can trust me. Okay? When it comes to comparing specifications and features, I will tell you that most photographers get hung up on the things that are the least important. The number of megapixels is one of the least important features in a camera. Sorry. Not important. Doesn't matter. If you're a great photographer, it doesn't matter how many megapixels you have. You'll make it snap either way. Okay? So depending on the genre of photography you're going to do, that will drive what features are important. Okay? If you're a street photographer, there are going to be certain features that are very different, that are very important for you, that are not going to be important at all for the night sky photographer. Okay? So one camera body may or may not fit your needs, but another camera body from that same manufacturer may fit your needs quite well. But do you have the knowledge to ask the right questions? That is why I recommend talking to a photographer whose portfolio you respect and who you respect as an individual, and ask them some questions. Now, if you invest time asking questions from someone and they have affiliate links, then you should support them. That's the right thing to do. If you are dumb enough, and I've had people dumb enough, to do that and then tell them what a great deal you got off Amazon, someone should Tanya Harding you. Yeah, you should catch a metal rod across the shins. If you're going to do that to people, then don't be stupid enough to brag to them about what a deal you got from another location. People don't care. They don't like it. They're not happy for you. So, do your research from the right sources. Get your hands on certain products. You know, a filter, I don't necessarily need my hand on that. I'm going to be a free will, I got theological. Free will filter ambassador. I'm very excited about that. They've sent me some stuff. I'll be taking first impressions and then doing reviews on those. Okay? So, you need to understand, how are you going to use a tripod? That will affect, I wish one tripod fit me in every single situation, but it doesn't. It's why I like to have several different PhotoPro tripods, and why I don't get rid of any old ones, okay, that are good quality ones. If you need a remote shutter, do you need a programmable one, an intervalometer, or just a simple remote shutter? Should you use a wired or a wireless one? I will not use a wired remote shutter for a variety of reasons. So do your research wisely so that you know the correct questions to ask people before you make a purchase. Terrible reasons to buy gear. Resale value. Oh, don't buy it based on how much you can get out of it. Another terrible reason. Just focusing on the number of megapixels or the sensor size. That's one of the least important things you should do. Buying gear just based on the name alone. That's silly. There are many brands out there. SanDisk is one of them that used to produce great gear and now it's crap, right? So, just because something has had a good reputation doesn't mean it still does. There are some very big name camera manufacturers who have fallen way behind in terms of features offered in their gear. There are some camera manufacturers that sell a lot of cameras that don't have many special features, but they go off their reputation, particularly in other industries, okay? So, another terrible reason buying it is because a friend uses it. That's not a good reason. That's not a good reason at all. Your friend may be a terrible photographer. They may be horrible. Talk to photographers who are more advanced than you, way more advanced than you, okay? People may think I don't learn. Maybe they may think I'm arrogant. I don't care what they think about me. I do learn, but I learn from people whose work I look at, whose service I look at and respect and admire, who I want to be more like, okay? One thing you should consider is potentially renting gear or borrowing it before buying it. Now, let me say this though. You need to have someone who knows that gear to help you use it. I've seen people not make purchases because they got frustrated and they say, well, who did you talk to about it? Nobody. That's kind of stupid. So, test the gear in real world scenarios. Holding a camera and testing it inside a camera store and then buying it based off that, well, that's not real world. How do the ergonomics and performance fit your style? You know, no matter how good something might be, if it doesn't feel comfortable, if you don't think you can use it well, or if someone doesn't tell you the tricks to using it well, you're going to struggle. So use rentals, use rentals as a stepping stone to making big purchases. You know, don't be afraid to spend a couple $100 to save you thousands potentially. Now, another topic is prioritize your spending. You're better off buying a better lens than a better body in most conditions, okay? Now, I'll tell you, if you're an OM system user, there's a huge technological difference between the EM1X and the OM1. The technological difference between the OM1 and the OM1 Mark II is limited. So if all you have are EM1Xs and you can afford it, yes, you should absolutely go to an OM1 or an OM1 Mark II. But if you have an OM1, no, you don't necessarily need to spend the money on a Mark II. You should buy a better lens. Now, if you're a landscape photographer, yeah, the graduated neutral density filter that's built in, that might be a reason to upgrade. You should upgrade accessories slowly and intentionally. Now, you're better off to buy a good quality tripod from the start, okay? I see that's one area where people waste a ton of money. People waste a ton of money buying big name memory cards when they don't need to spend the money there. People can waste a lot of money in a lot of areas buying the wrong camera bag. I have probably 15 camera bags at this point. You know, not one works for every single situation. I have one I predominantly use, but not one works for every single thing, okay? So, and avoid overbuying gear that you're not going to use that often. Can you rent it? You know, before you go in a workshop and you say, do I need a neutral density filter? Find out, do you really need it? You know, if you're only going to use it once ever, then maybe not. But if you are going to shoot a lot of waterfalls, if you want to try to capture lightning in certain situations, you know, with live composite and OM system, you know, I don't have to use a neutral density filter as much. I do, if it's bright out, I'm going to put a neutral density filter on with live composite because I can't use live composite and the live neutral density filter at the same time. Okay? So, those are a couple of things where it might come, where prioritizing your spending will come in handy. I really want to emphasize this. As much as possible, support your local camera store and your local photographer. Amazon isn't going to be hurting if you don't buy your gear from them. B&H isn't going to be hurting if you don't buy their gear from them, but your local photographer might. You know, I work a lot getting my affiliate links into my website. It is a lot of work getting that stuff put up. I've even had a professional photographer talk to me for a long time and then brag to me about how they got a special online gear. What a turd. What a turd. That pissed me off to no end, man. If you learn a lot from certain photographers, then help them out when you can. Now, maybe they don't have affiliate links, or ask them, hey, do you have an Amazon affiliate link? At least if you're buying from Amazon, if you buy through someone's affiliate link, then at least you're helping support someone. That's awesome. If I'm making certain purchases, I go out and look and see if any of my friends have affiliate links for that, and then I'll try to buy through them to help them out. So, if you're going to buy from a dealer, then make sure you buy from a reputable dealer who has a good return policy. I'm surprised how many people think just because their camera is 2 months old that they can take it right back to the camera store and get another one. You need to inquire about the manufacturer's warranty, which may require you to mail it in, okay, versus buying the store's warranty that may let you swap one out. Don't get cheap in the wrong place, okay? You know, if I buy an Apple product that costs me a certain amount of money, I automatically buy Apple Care. I just do. I'm not going to spend $6,500 on a laptop and not have Apple Care. And then if something happens to it in 6 months, I'm not going to go say, well, it's only 6 months old. Yeah, that sucks, but did you do your research on your warranty, or how will it get replaced if there is a problem? I've stood at Precision Camera Counter and watched people upset because a camera was 3 months old and they had a problem with it and they have to mail it in. Well, did you ask before? Did you really pay attention? So, avoid gray market and risky online sources. You know, sometimes saving $50, $100 costs you a lot more in the long run. Trust me. So, you know, register your gear, insure it. You know, a regular homeowner's policy often will not cover above a certain amount. Sometimes it's as low as $2,500 where you lose one body, one lens, and you may be out that money. So those are some things I hope will help you make wise camera and camera accessory purchases. The most important one is doing your research and learning from the right people. You know, if you want to do underwater photography, by God, find an outstanding underwater photographer and ask them what they've experienced when they're actually underwater. Talking to a camera store salesman who's never taken an underwater image isn't going to help you. And you damn sure know Amazon and B&H have very limited ways of helping you. So, and then reading Amazon reviews, you know, people get paid and do certain things to do reviews on there. Is that really that reliable? Couple of post-purchase tips, okay? Master your system before you worry about upgrading. If you don't know shit about a particular camera body and you think buying another one or switching systems is what's going to help you, that's silly. I've seen people not take the time to master OM gear and go back to heavier, more expensive, less feature-filled bodies because they didn't take the time to learn what they have. So, learn your system. Practice before deciding to expand further. I can't tell you how many people do this. And then reassess your needs regularly as your skills grow. You know, maybe you weren't interested in night sky photography when you started out. Now you are. Okay. Before making purchases, talk to someone who does night sky photography. If your friend has never done night sky photography or you're posting on a Facebook group, do you really know and trust? If somebody answers and you take their word for it, did you bother to click on their name and go see if their images suck? Because quite often they do. So be smart, be wise. Don't throw away money needlessly. It can add up quickly. Hey guys, thank you for watching my videos. I've got some OM system workshops. I've got my OM system mentorship programs. Part 1 and Part 3 are now open for registration. If you're watching this, I'm doing a Rob Trek live right now, so you may watch that recording later. I'm going to talk about mastering your gear. Thank you for being an online member of my community. I greatly appreciate you. Hop over to my website, leehoyphotography.com. It's been renovated. I got a lot of new information out there. I'm also having it completely redone, so stay tuned for updates in the future. Get out there and go capture some visually compelling images. Take care.